This is a clip from the Canon podcast. To hear the full episode and get access to exclusive benefits, head over to patreon.com/thecannonpod and sign up for just £3 a month.
Newcastle. We've got Newcastle this Sunday, lads. It ain't going to be easy. And I'm not looking forward to it. I really am not. And I'm normally a very optimistic fan, but listen, I remember last year, and it was very painful. We could not get out of our half. And that was Newcastle when they were, 13th? Now these guys are serious. They're fighting for Champions League football. We took 6-7 years to get back into the Champions League. Newcastle in year 2, the project, about to do that. That's how impressive Newcastle have been. And how far they've progressed under Eddie Howe. Newcastle this Sunday, I think that there is a massive thing Mikel Arteta has to do now is defensively. If there is no Gabriel Magalhaes, which would be a massive blow, to Arsenal, do we trust Kiwior and Holding? Or is there any other solutions? Or if Gabriel is fit, even if Gabriel is fit, can we play Kiwior next to him and trust him in a game like Newcastle? Because against Chelsea, they weren't pressing him. They weren't pressing Kiwior. They weren't forcing him onto his weaker foot. We weren't seeing him tested in terms of playing back under pressure. Newcastle will do that. So, George, do you trust Jakub Kiwior against Newcastle United?
Definitely I trust him, but do I trust Rob Holding? No. I don't think anyone does, with all due respect. Look, Rob, I love you. Listen. I think that's the key question, though, right? Because I think regardless, to be honest, even if Gabriel Magalhaes can make a recovery, let's say, I still would put Kiwior there. And then let's say he doesn't make a recovery, Kiwior still starts for me. He's still one of the center backs that, for me, is starting. I'm not starting Rob Holding. I believe that he is the root cause for a lot of our issues between the Lions. And, I think it's not just his individual play. I think people get hung up on the fact that it's the Rob Holding quality that people have a problem with. No, for me, it's the impact on the system. He makes a huge hole in the middle of the park, and our defensive line is significantly deeper with him there. Part of the issue why Kiwior, listen, he didn't do anything flashy on the ball, but he allowed us to squeeze up the pitch, shorten the spaces, and we saw the effect that had in terms of making sure to blow really Chelsea out of the water. And that's regardless of opponent, by the way. I think Chelsea are poor. They were very poor on the night. But regardless, the way in which we won was very impressive, and it's something that we haven't seen for 4 or 5 games. And it was that impetus that really Kiwior allowed us to do, to step up the pitch, close the space, squeeze it, and allow us to really play our football and kind of express those fluid rotations. So what do we do? Listen, for me, I have had a big issue with Rob Holding. I think Ben White needs to return to center back if we don't have, Gabriel. Because Newcastle are going to press, and they're going to press hard. And I do think that, Partey at right back is something I'm willing to do with Jorginho in the middle of the park in order to kind of be able to get out of that press, because Newcastle will press us and Rob Holding will suffer a goal. It's probably one of his worst qualities is under a press, he is not composed. And he hoops it, and he doesn't allow us to build play. And that's beyond the high line impact that a Ben White and a Kiwior partnership would give us. Again, lack of chemistry, for sure, so there's going to be issues. It's not a perfect solution, but at least this way, we've got our athletes up the pitch. It allows us to stay high, and allows us to kind of squeeze Newcastle in areas they don't want to be in. And one of the best things that we could do, in the home fixture at least, was they tried to press us, and I think we played through them like butter, and they stopped pressing us. So that is key. If you give them impetus and you give them a way to be in the game, their crowd are going to be up for it. This is a team that hasn't lost, except for Anfield, who went down for 10 men. They are not some pushover. Newcastle have not lost at St. James Park except for the 10 men of Anfield, and that is significant to me. And I do think that they aren't another flash in the pan. And I'll end on this really quickly. For as much as Mikel Arteta's Arsenal has, had a really large sample, Newcastle have had a equally high sample of playing like a top 4 team. It hasn't just been this season. Even well into last season, if you look at the table since January, they were top 3 club in the country. And they kind of maintained that throughout this season. So, tough match. But
I'm going to go for the best case scenario. Let's just say Gabriel is fit, and you'll keep your next to him. Do
Yes.
Arsenal still then have enough then to go and beat them? Do we have enough to go and beat Newcastle? Because we have to. If we have any chance of winning a title this season, if Man City are going to drop points in 1 and 2 games, we have to go to Newcastle and win that game. So, Alex, do you trust, even with Gabriel fit and available, this team that beat Chelsea pretty comfortably, but let's be honest, in the second half, there were some shaky spells, to go to Newcastle against a Newcastle team that are looking decisive, that are clinical, that have inform attackers, Isak, Wilson, they've got Sam Maximan off the bench. They've even got Jacob Murphy scoring goals. United got battered there. Spurs got battered there, but that's nothing new. Can we go to Newcastle and get a win? And how?
Yeah, Tottenham.
If so.
Tottenham get battered everywhere they go.
They do. And Chelsea as well.
Yeah. I think we can. I definitely think we can. If you look at the reverse fixture, we
played some unbelievable football. It just didn't happen for us in the final third. So it's a case of being more decisive in the final third, which is very easy to say, but it's something Mikel constantly talks about, that the games are won and lost in the box. I think there's nothing... Did we have Jesus last time we played Newcastle?
No Jesus.
Right. So I think that's a significant difference. I think the Kivior thing is a concern, and if we have everyone available, obviously without Saliba and Tomiyasu, it is a concern. But I would play him. The pros and cons. Cons, I think Kivior has... Well, I think because he wasn't used to the team, he was quite conservative in his passing against Chelsea. He didn't break any lines. He often just played out to Gabriel Zinchenko, obviously to his more comfortable side. I think he might have passed to Ben White like twice or something. So I felt like our right-hand side got stunted. I hope if we have a period of possession, he can start to be a little bit more adventurous. And I think that's just going to be a case of playing games. You know, it's one of those things. It's going to be his first away game, first big away game. So I don't think we'll see anything. I don't think he'll pull up trees. But the central compactness that we get, the squeeze on the line, and it's the knock-on effect, as George was talking about. Everything comes from the line, the ability to defend space in behind, and your ability to have high profile and high quality progressive passing, which Rob doesn't do. And again, I've created a new rule for myself. I've stopped calling him Rob Holding. I've started calling him wrong profile, because that's what he is. It's not a personal issue. It's not. I'm sure. I genuinely think if you asked every single Arsenal fan who would they want to go for a pint with in the current team, they'd say Rob Holding. But he's not going...
Xhaka's not a bad shout, to be honest.
Yeah. But he'd make you buy the pints. But you know, it's not a nice guy competition. It's the Premier League. So it's about what is the profile and the skill set. I believe that we've got up against Chelsea and we've shown what we can do. And we've got back to winning ways, and we've got back to playing the way what we have because of the knock-on effect of the defenders. And then I think that should give us a lot of confidence going up to Newcastle. I just think, realistically, we can look at that team sheet and know that maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, we're thinking they're as good as us, and it's going to be about the tactics and the application. But at the moment, there are weaknesses. You know, I trust Saka up against Dan Burn. I trust... I trust our strikers up against Shah and maybe not Botman, but, you know, there's a weakness. And ultimately, as we've seen, even one person not quite at the level, you can be punished in this league. So I'm pretty confident.
Okay, pretty confident's a big shout, by the way, because Newcastle are looking like a real scary
You're going to clip this up, aren't you?
Listen, I'm not a clipper in it. I'm not a clipper. I'm not that type of person. So you're lucky with that. But what I am going to say, right, is as much as Newcastle are great going forwards and they are very good defensively, I think one thing that Arsenal have in their favour is how good our attack has been. Even in the games against, you know, Liverpool, West Ham, Southampton, 3 goals against Southampton, 2 against West Ham, 2 against Liverpool. Even in our home games, I think we had 6 games in a row now. We've got 3+ goals, or at least 3 or more goals. So Arsenal are attacking very well. And I think in this game here, now the problem Mikel Arteta might have is, does he revert to Jesus, Martinelli and Saka? Or does he keep Trossard in the team? Because, you know, Trossard come back into the team and Arsenal go and win the game. Without him, I think we win 4 games without a win. So, George, do you think Leandro Trossard keeps his place for this game against Newcastle?
That's the question of the night, you know, I think. Because, look, Gabriel Jesus, I think he has the seniority. I don't think Mikel does it, first off, because Mikel has faith in his players. Do I think that's hard done by? 100%. I think Leandro Trossard in his minutes has shown how productive he can be. And I think his ability to be efficient in the final third is going to be something that we're going to need at, you know, Newcastle. And that's something that I can't always guarantee with Gabriel Jesus. What I can guarantee with him is movement, but I'm not sure how much that counts in a very transition-heavy game. One of the things that I'm worried about with Newcastle is these second balls. One of the big reasons that, you know, Chelsea was so good in terms of an Arsenal perspective is when we could squeeze, we were able to compete for second balls. What we can't do is make this a basketball game, and we can't have Jesus dropping into the pivot or to right back and trying to make himself an option and not be up front where he's deadly. We need that movement to be up front, not in our defensive third. So when you talk about who is really efficient kind of in those moments, I think Leandro Trossard is brilliant. I think he has been a revelation, one of the signings of the season, by the way, comparatively, when you look at what he went for and his impact on us. He's just fitted in seamlessly. And I had made a shout earlier that I think he could play in midfield. I really see that as a long-term position for him. When you look at kind of the Santi Cazorla comparisons, that for me was something that I really looked towards and thought, that is something he could fill down the line. There is a way that maybe we could have, Trossard play, but I still think Mikel will go with tried and trusted Jesus And I think a lot of it has to do with seniority. He's his guy. He's made him his guy. You can't drop your guy for one of the biggest games of the season. You can make points with other players, which I think he tried to do with Martinelli, which confused me. He was one of our best attackers in the last 4 or 5 games. But I really think Jesus is kind of an emotional leader, and I think taking him out probably does more harm than good, even as a coach separately. So I think Jesus starts, and it's probably what I would do ultimately.
Thanks for checking out the Canon Podcast. To get full episodes and access to exclusive benefits, head over to patreon.com/thecannonpod and sign up for just £3 a month.